Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo mishmash. As usual, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Steve Scourge. Steve, how are you doing today?
I am well. How are you guys?
I'm well. And Steve, you're asking about me and the chat room. And you know what? I actually already messed up this beginning. I didn't say what the date was, just in case anybody didn't know. This is being broadcast live right this very moment on November 28th, 2018. And we welcome the chat room as well, who has joined us today. And thank you for joining us. Kyle has already noticed the Boba Fett mug, drinking a little tea.
Yeah, before we started broadcasting, I wanted to bring that up, and I got to chatting about something else. That is, man, you reminded me. I've got an Obi-Wan and Chewie mug downstairs that I need to bring onto the show now.
You do, definitely. Yeah. And this reminds me that my kid picked up a PS4 over the kind of Black Friday holiday sales, and we've been playing a little bit of Battlefront 2, Star Wars. It's pretty fun to be Boba Fett.
So speaking of that, I forget the name of it. Somebody in the chat room might know, but this spring of 2019, what's the Oculus? Oculus has a new product coming out, and I'm on their little newsletter for when it releases, and there's a Star Wars game that's being released at the same time where you're not tethered to a computer or anything like that, and it doesn't run off your mobile device or anything. It looks awesome. So I was a video game guy for years as a kid growing up, but never got into like the networking video game thing. This is probably going to be my purchase back into that video game world after, I think my last machine was a Xbox 360 or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I wasn't too old ago. I was waiting for you to say like Nintendo SNES, something like that.
Well, those are the glory days, man. Yeah, the classic Nintendo and then the Super Nintendo. I had both of those.
Yeah. And if you haven't guessed, this is that show where Steve and I get together each week, if we're not traveling, and chit-chat about all of the week's news, usually photographic related, but occasionally reminiscence of our childhood. I mean, there's also, we go all the way back to the Atari 2600 too, Steve.
Yeah, I love the Atari. That's what started it all, really. My dad actually bought that for our house because the parents would get together and have cocktails, and my uncle said, you got to check out this video game thing. So he probably paid like $1,000 for it too, back in the, what was that, early 80s. I mean, it was just incredibly expensive for what it was back then. And of course, he never really played it, or maybe they played a football game on it or something for a couple weeks, and then I took it over, played Pitfall. Yeah, that was my game.
Pitfall was pretty fantastic. Combat 2 for multiplayer was fun as well, and I loved River Raider. I don't know if you remember.
Now, how about the ET game? You know, there's like a whole documentary about that Atari 2600 ET game. I waited months for that thing to come out. I bought it. We paid whatever the fee was, and it was horrible. It was the worst game ever, which has made it infamous now.
That's right. I feel like there's some video of a steamroller like crushing thousands of cartridges or something of that sort.
Well, I think some people say there's thousands of them buried somewhere. And it's kind of this like unicorn now where you can find that they're out in Area 51 somewhere, along with my chemtrails.
Along with ET himself.
Yes, ET himself he's not home yet.
Okay, hold on. Before we lose everybody, let me set up a couple of teasers, because we've got a couple of I think interesting things to talk about. One is I sent out an email. The DJI Osmo Pocket was announced today. I want to talk about why I think that's going to kill GoPro, and you all can argue for or against that. Chat room, thank you so much for joining us today. Love to see you all in there. And I also, you know what, Steve? We've mentioned it a lot of times, the drone crash in Croatia, but because of a new video coming out where I review the Mavic 2, I had to actually go dig that footage up, and I will show it on this show for the very first time. It's never been seen publicly before. So
you're finally it's been over a year and a half, and you're now comfortable showing that footage.
Well, it's not that I was uncomfortable before. It's just got shoved aside like everything else. And I mean, do you know how many hours of 4K footage from around the world I'm sitting on? And so, some little crash in a drone didn't really, but it's kind of fun to watch and talk through it. So We'll show that a little bit later on in the show. And of course, we want to hear from the chat room. I want to hear from you, Steve. Any big Black Friday purchases or holiday purchases over this whole kind of savings period? I'll share my favorite purchase with you in just a few minutes. But as usual, we got some show notes that we're working from that Roy has put together. You can find all of the articles and things that we're talking about at photorec.tv/MMH. That stands for Mish Mash Highlights. So if you'd like to follow along, or if we just tease something and you'd actually like to go really learn about it, well, photorec.tv/MMH. And just a reminder that Squarespace is sponsoring Photorec TV. You can earn or save 10% off your first purchase, whether that's a domain or the actual website, whatever you're building at Squarespace, you can save 10% by going to squarespace.com/PhotorecTV. We thank them so much for their sponsorship. Steve, we talked a little bit about you. It's time for you to build a website. You still planning on that in 2019?
I am still planning on that. And I'm glad to see that Kyle is in the chat room, because he and I exchanged a couple emails earlier about an image review. And he had asked, kind of how that was going. We talked in Iceland about me doing more of my large format print sales and stuff like that. And really the website is going to be kind of a springboard for a lot of that direction in my business. And so anyway, I love how we get on this show every single week, and I'm reminded of just how much I've procrastinated and haven't done a single thing with that. So I'm no closer to having my new website than I was last week. But I've had a couple of great reminders, Kyle and my dialogue, and now your reminder here. So I need to start getting on this, because it's going to be really embarrassing if we go like 10 shows and I haven't done anything. Kind of par for the course with me. Actually, I can admit that. I was a bit of a crammer in my college days, but we'll get her done, and it will be a Squarespace site for sure.
Well, the good news is Squarespace makes it easy enough. I mean, we didn't plan this little shtick, but it really does make it easy enough that if you had a deadline, let's say, Steve, you set a deadline for yourself, January 15th, you wanted to have some kind of workable website, you could wait until around 9 p.m. on January 14th and have a decent website up and running. The trickiest part for people like us, you, me, most of the chat room, is picking the pictures that you want. It's not the actual website building. And truthfully, Squarespace, Wix, drag and drop. It's just very, very easy. And you really just have to kind of set aside your pictures. And also, what are you going to say about you? Are you going to be one of those people that writes in the third person, or are you going to say, first person?
Okay, so first of all, first person for sure. I'm not into that third person thing. It's obvious that, okay, it's my website, I'm the product, the buck stops with me. It'll just sound weird coming from the third person. Now, if I had a team of people, or it was a company or something that had multiple layers to it, that's a different story. But yeah, so I do have that figured out. And you're absolutely right. That's the part that I'm struggling with, is going back through my work, because I want to be extremely selective. In the past, on my Wix site, I would just constantly update whatever new stuff I had, kind of like I do with maybe my Facebook page. But this is different. This is kind of like the best of the best. And what do I want to actually sell? And each product that's being sold will have, I'll have spent hours on getting it right for print, for large format print. So that's kind of the nightmare that I'm dealing with right now, and trying to find the time to do that among everything else that we have going on. Building the website really is the easy part, and it only takes a couple hours of just plugging that stuff in. So anyway, we'll get her done.
Sounds good. To talk real briefly about things that came out across the networks this week, networks being Photorec TV or the Photo Enthusiast Network. Typically, this show just does go out to Photo Enthusiast members. If you're watching this through the email or through Instagram, I like sharing with those people who are passionate about the content I'm producing from time to time. But you're missing lots more if this is the only thing you're getting. We've got this week we had pen videos, the Photo Enthusiast Network, going out on the HDR Pano merge. I thought you did that one already. Didn't that already go out?
No, I did a Tuesday tip on just doing HDR merge.
Yes.
Weeks back. It was from one of our pen members that was on tour with
yeah.
us, who brought that up as a question, and I had to write a tip later that day, and I thought, there it is. That's perfect. So this is a totally new feature in the latest version of Lightroom Classic CC, HDR Pano merge.
Nice.
And,
Gotcha.
so we've done Pano, done HDR. I figured it's kind of a natural progression to now talk about the new tool.
Nice. And you introduced stacks, which we haven't talked about at all really in any other videos up to now.
Yeah, and that kind of came about as I was preparing for the video, because I was taking some shots and I was working with it and becoming more familiar with it. And stacks, that is awesome when you're merging a bunch of photos together. Just kind of piles them all together, and you get a little icon on there that shows you how many photos are in that series, and then you can unstack it or stack it back up. Really cleans up your desktop, and I like that.
Yeah, it really does. And, you know, we talk about this a lot when we're teaching classes, either on tours or just when we're teaching the Lightroom class, really kind of using all of these tips and tricks to keep this unmanageable number of photos that we're producing to be more manageable. And something as simple as the kind of idea stacks really helps. So that's a fantastic video that's available to photo enthusiast members. We have a new video every week that goes out. We also had a Tuesday tip from Allie about aperture priority, pros and cons. I think there's kind of this feeling that if you're serious about photography, you really only should shoot as a manual photographer. And there are very valid reasons that you might choose aperture priority, even as a professional photographer. But there are also some pitfalls to it. And so she nicely, in that Tuesday tip, which is a weekly email to you all, kind of dives into that.
Yeah, when we're on tour, you know, we do everything we can to get people on full manual. Those that have traveled with us in the past know that we really are proponents of that. But there are times where aperture priority or shutter priority can be extremely helpful. But the whole idea really is to get you in that full manual. I'm not talking about manual focus, but just manual settings mode, and understand the language of photography and controlling your equipment. And then you can choose aperture priority, shutter priority. You're the one in control of the camera. The camera's not controlling you. So yeah, it was a great Tuesday tip. I'm glad she put that out there. And we move on.
Yep. And similar Tuesday tip last week from me. This is the holiday week. I expect many of you may have missed this if you were as busy as me. I thought, what's a quick tip I can do? And then about a half an hour later, I had written 4 pages because it just flowed out of me. And so I actually had to cut it back and simplify it. But it really simply is about the safe shutter speeds for the focal length you're shooting. We talk about this a lot on trips. It's a pretty basic idea, but it's one I want to make sure we're all kind of on the same page about. And again, there are reasons, there are times where you can cheat that rule, a tripod, or you got image stabilization either in the lens or in the body. And there are times when it's absolutely critical that you follow that rule to the T. So that was an email that went out last week about that content. And we have recycled, because we're green around here, the holiday greeting card tip from last year, because you might be thinking about creating some holiday greeting cards right about now. So that's gone out to everybody. And just a reminder that all of this we're talking about is part of the Photo Enthusiast Network, which includes weekly new videos. It already has hundreds of hours of video content there, the weekly tips. Many of these videos have downloadable content, plus multiple ways to get your images reviewed by professional photographers. And of course, access to our fantastic community, some of which are hanging out with us right now in the chat room. And again, thank you all for doing that. And thank you for being part of the community. You really have made it an awesome place. And I truly believe it is the best photographic community on the internet. It's a bunch of really nice people and multiple professional photographers that answer the questions you need to help you grow as a photographer. All of that is available to you at a really incredible price right now. That price is going up January 1st. So head on over to photorec.tv/join to learn more about the Photo Enthusiast Network. I just do the photorec.tv/join because it's easier and shorter to say. You could also go directly to photoenthusiastnetwork.com. That both works.
Pen.com was taken. We tried.
Yeah, probably by Bic or some of, you know, those guys. Those guys. Okay. Before we get into some Lightroom tips and tricks, and I was reminded on a couple of them, and I've got a new video coming out this week for Photo Enthusiast members with some Lightroom tips and tricks. I want to just kind of continuing the tease, the DJI Osmo Pocket we'll talk about in a few minutes. But Steve, did you pick up anything over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, holiday shopping deals that you're really excited about sharing?
Well, we did pick up something. Well, we haven't picked it up yet, but I'm extremely excited about sharing. But no, as far as tech goes, I had huge restraint because I was actually following all your stuff. I watched your Black Friday video, all your recommendations there. I was keeping track on your website of all the deals that were coming through. I was getting bombarded with emails on Black Friday, and Black Friday continues, and now it's Cyber Monday. And I managed to get through all of it without purchasing anything, which you know, was kind of tough, I'll admit, because there were some screaming deals out there. But I'll tell you, if you are in the market for like an A9
I know,
laptop, or I can't remember what else was out there, a lot of memory deals and stuff like that. It was yeah, it was hard to resist. We were busy right after Thanksgiving, traveling up to visit a dog breeder that we've been in touch with for a long time, and we found ourselves a little puppy.
Oh, I think I can share a picture here.
She is. That's our sweet little Ollie.
That is an adorable face, and I love the name.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Olivia. So we kind of decided on the name Ollie before we even knew which puppy we were going to get. We've been in touch with this breeder for quite a while now, and she's just amazing. But we decided, okay, if it's a boy, it will be Oliver. We'll call him Ollie. If it's a girl, it will be Olivia, but we'll call her Ollie. And as a skateboarder, of course, I love the name Ollie. And as our fellow instructor, David Carr, put it, it certainly sounds a lot better than naming her McTwist. So, for those of you who know skateboarding, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so that was our Thanksgiving shopping splurge. We got each other that. We pick her up on the 18th of December, and we're literally counting the days. We can't wait.
I bet she's absolutely adorable. I'm looking forward to medium format puppy pictures.
Yeah. And I'll apologize right now. There's plenty of those that are going to be coming. Ollie's going to be well documented, I'm sure.
That is a super, super sweet face. You know, I managed to make it through without really picking up anything camera-wise. We got a bunch of stuff for the house. Some of it exciting, some of it not. But one piece of gear I did pick up that I'm really excited about that doesn't have anything to do with photography either. It's one of these guys.
Oh, dude, that is seriously one of those things. Every time I see one, I think I want one of those, and then the idea leaves me. Yeah. Or stringing your Christmas lights, man. That thing is awesome.
For me, on our way down to this studio, my basement, there is this really high, strange cabinet on the wall, and it's big. And it's where I love to put all of my boxes of stuff that arrives. I am mostly a box keeper, and that when new stuff comes, I keep the boxes. And it's very difficult to reach. And then I got this, and it's.
So what is that thing even called?
I don't remember. Like grabber extender or something, but I was looking at the technology of it, the way it works. It's pretty snazzy. It's got a weight of about 5 pounds. You know, like here's a good couple of pound lens, and it, you know, it holds it.
Yeah, I don't know about.
It's exciting.
We gotta work on your arm strength, apparently.
I was shaking to show you how sturdy it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Not because I was weak. So, yeah, I could. Let's see. Do you see if I can take a sip of my tea? No, not over the MacBook. We were just talking about how well our old MacBooks work, and I don't want to end it right there and be like, "Well, Toby, why'd you have to get a new MacBook?" Well, on a live show, I was demonstrating how sturdy this grabber was, and then my tea went everywhere. No. Yeah. All right, yeah, so I'd love to hear from chat room. Did any of you guys end up with anything nifty, anything you were waiting for? I mean, there were some fantastic deals, But you know, across the board, the things that most of us are most excited about, like the latest, very latest camera, those are rarely on sale of any kind of discount. The very latest lenses, I was hoping to see a discount on the 100 to 400 from Sony. Nothing at all, no discount there at all. But a lot of the other Sony lenses did have some discounts, and that A9 as well. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We're going to dive into the Lightroom's tips and tricks section. And we just got one photo that I actually haven't even gotten into my system yet. So Steve, you stall them while we talk a little bit about Lightroom's tips and tricks, and while we move this part of the show up a little bit and didn't wait to the very end now to do it.
Well, actually, I've got a question for the chat room, and I put this on the Penn Facebook page. We were speaking earlier about dog breeder, and we've kind of struck up a good friendship with this woman. She may be, I don't know if she's watching live, but she may watch the recording of this. If she's not, I told her about the show, and I told her about it because she joined Penn today, which is very, very sweet of her. But she's done a little bit of photography in the past, and she's got a product that she's invented, and I'm not going to say much about it, except that it's just totally cool. And this is one smart lady. But she needs to know a great way to photograph it. So I told her that I'd reach out to the community and find out if anybody has experience using, you know, light boxes. And I haven't done any product photography in my work. So anyway, any feedback that you guys have, if you want to kind of noodle on it for a little bit and let us know on the Facebook page or something. I just wanted to bring that up on the live show with the recording that goes out, because I was kind of at a loss. And as a photography educator, I don't like to be at a loss. So would love your folks' help on that. Any certain products that you like in the Lightbox world, any tips or tricks, experiences, what to do, what not to do is great. So anyway, that's not only my stall, but I did want to ask you guys for some help on that, if you wouldn't mind taking a look and chiming in if you have experience.
Nice. Yeah, I'd be interested to know. It is not something I've done much of. I did have a little light box tent for a while, which is, it's basically like a soft box, except the product goes inside and the lights are outside. But you know, just a very little to experiment with that. So I'd be interested to see what people are saying and talking about that. Real quick from chat, just want to say Brian answered the question. He picked up the Fuji GFX 50R. Oh. And I quote, "For which I sold everything not nailed down in the house." I understand, Brian. I understand.
Oh, now I see his comments here. This ends badly. Oh, I'm proud of you, Brian. I've been harassing him for quite a while, because I'll tell you, if I was a Fuji guy and in that world, I would have picked that thing up in a heartbeat and done exactly what he did. Sold everything to get it, because what a killer camera. It's expensive. We've talked about this before. It's expensive, but in the medium format world, it is such a bargain. So I'm stoked for him. That is great news.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. And he does qualify that statement. He didn't sell the dogs, except the dogs. So
well, that's a given.
And except the daughter too, Brian. I'd suggest you probably should qualify. But you know, just saying. Okay, let's dive into this one picture we have, and then I want to bring up a couple others that I've been working on that share some highlights. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and make sure we see just me. Here we go. All right. I will say that over the last couple of days, I feel like my Lightroom has been really, really slow. So hopefully it won't be too bad today. And I don't quite know what to attribute it to, because I wasn't working on particularly large files.
Did I tell you, Toby, that I was trying to kind of not necessarily migrate, but just do a lot of work with Capture One?
Yes, but you're a little stymied. Tell us a little bit more about that, Steve.
Well, yeah, Capture One is made by Phase One, and Phase One, as many of you know, make these really high-end medium format cameras. Well, Hasselblad also makes very high-end medium format cameras, and so the two don't like to play well together. And I found out that all my files from the X1D are not going to be compatible with Capture One unless I strip all the metadata out of it and export it as a DNG, and then bring it into capture one, and therefore nothing is captured. No pun intended. So anyway, it's just a big pain in the neck, and it really bummed me out because Lightroom is, oh gosh, it seems like we're always fighting with how slow it is. It's not that I'm going to stop using it. I just get frustrated with it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It really would be nice if the phase one capture one, you know, was a little bit more competitor friendly. You know, I guess I understand why they've done that, but I just wish more people would be a little bit more friendly, and we would all be better off for it. We've got an image from Pam. Pam, I think this has happened to you before. It's a very small image. Here it is at 1:1 size. So we're going to be limited in what we can talk about. But I do really like this kind of misty. I think it's kind of a misty, foggy morning. Steve, this was probably on your recent workshop in the Smoky Mountains. Do you think that's correct?
Yeah. I would definitely lay money down on that bet.
Yeah. There's just something about, you have this little kind of window surrounded by all of this fall color. And I really like that. It kind of makes me want to step to the right a little bit and see where this leads. So, you know, composition wise, I think shifting to the right a little bit and giving us something down there to focus on, but it's still a nice shot. The one place that I would work on it and edit a little bit here, and this is a good example to show this, is kind of the color panel. We've got some really nice colors in here, but a couple of these yellows are just a little bit more muted. So I'm in the HSL/color panel, and I'm on the color side of it. And, you know, I've started to more recently use the HSL side of it, where it's broken up. It's the exact same, except instead of by color, it's grouped by hue, saturation, and luminance. Whereas on the color side, each color is grouped with hue, saturation, and luminance. But there's one other difference, and I think I discovered this on a recent show. So if you've watched recently, you remember this. You can come in here and you can use these little droppers. And instead of guessing, because here's what I usually do, be like, well, that looks like yellow to me. And you can start to shift that color left or right and see how it affects your image. But that's a lot of guessing. If you come to the HSL and you just grab that color by clicking and dragging up or down, you can really make a big change. Now,
so Toby, is there a way of fitting that to the screen, or does it just totally break down because of its size?
Oh yeah, it's very small, isn't it? We can do that.
That's it, man. Oh wait,
let's see. What about? Oh nope, wrong way. Sorry. Let's go to this.
You had. I think there's just a delay. I mean, that's definitely better.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So from my end, yes, it's small and it starts to get a little pixelated now here. But so I can click the little target indicator on one of these, and you just simply drag up and drag down. And look at this. You can go from an amazing red maple fall to almost spring-like. And again, you want to be careful about that, but just minor tweaks can really be used to adjust multiple colors. So we can come into the green section and we can make some differences there as well. I don't like either of what I've ended up with, but I really nicely use it, I think, as an example of what you can do by moving in here. Then, of course, you can come into the saturation section and you could try moving that up or down as well and just really change that. Now, you want to be careful because you don't want to take the pine tree into some yellow poisoned territory. So you do want to be careful about that. But when working with fall colors, and I do have a video about this on the Photo Enthusiast Network, this HSL/color slider is really, really nice.
That's cool, man. I don't know, kind of dig what you did there. You got an infrared look to it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Steve? Anything else that you would work on or look at in this image?
I would. So for me, the image kind of, I don't know, it kind of takes you over to the right. And then, like you said, you wish the photographer was just a few steps over to the right when the photo was taken, because it'll show you a little bit more of what's back there. The mystery, though, is kind of neat to me, but I would definitely flip this thing around, because the brighter area and where you're being visually led is over in that upper left section. And I just think it would be a stronger play in the upper right section. It just would feel a little bit more natural to the eye, and then you might notice more of the path to get there. just less stressful to the eye, because this isn't a scene that somebody's going to look at and just be like, well, obviously you flip that around. That's not the way that place looked. So I personally like that better, because now the bright section is where you want the viewer to lead, that left to right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like what you did in terms of, now I know this is extreme and what you did with the sliders and stuff, but for sure bringing out some of the individual colors. I edited a few photos from the Smoky Mountains and I found myself doing that. The colors were beautiful as they were, but we're shooting raw, so everything's going to be muted quite a bit compared to what you saw with your eye. And I really brought some of the vibrancy and saturation up a bit, much more so than you would with, say, a portrait and you have skin tones to worry about. You can really make things pop with a photo like this and not, in other words, you can put quite a bit of salt on the dish and not spoil it.
Cool. Yep. Yep. I agree. And you know, again, you tweaking just an individual saturation, you got a lot more control than you do if you just came up into the basic panel and brought that saturation over.
Yeah, and the other thing with a picture like this, I'll use it as a teaching opportunity to say, if you're, I don't know how wide this was shot, but yeah, we don't have any data on it, do we?
Yeah, we're missing all that. Yep.
I would kind of recompose it. If you're shooting wide, this is a great example of tilting down just a little bit to show more of the ground. What you're seeing, it's not like you're looking up and seeing things converge above your head. And you're kind of just looking straight across, and as a result, it's very two-dimensional. I think if you had some sort of concept of where the ground is and where you could be standing as a viewer or a participant, you'd feel more like you were part of the scene. And as it is right now, I just kind of feel like I'm looking out a car window that's set up high and passing by. And it's beautiful, no question about that. But I think there's a way of composing this for the viewer to feel like they're more of a participant in the photograph than an observer.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Steve. And I think we've talked about that before, and it's really worth repeating. To have some sense of depth in your image really can invite your viewer to kind of journey into your image. David always uses the term kind of let your viewer walk into the image, give them a path. And we don't really have a path here. We do have some sense of depth, in that kind of mist and space we're seeing through does help us. Frank says, you know, he suspects that if you step to the right to get the picture, you might fall from a great height. I always worry when I'm telling somebody, oh, you should have just done X or Y. Maybe they couldn't, you know. Yeah, maybe that's true. And you would have fallen to death and been eaten by crocodiles, you know, on the way down. But I don't know. But let's move on. And just real quick, I put together a collection of some of my best pictures with the Canon EOS R. Well, that's very big now. Let's see, one of them in here is good for illustrating a little bit of technique that I've teased off and on, and I really think is very powerful these days. It's this one back here. And yeah, it's fitting in the image. So this beautiful shot from our morning hike in Zion National Park. This is an easy, it doesn't look like it is, but it's actually really quite an easy hike. It's less than a mile. It's not a whole lot of elevation gain. And then you're presented with this amazing viewpoint that lets you look down into the valley and you can see the road below you. Let me hit reset button so you can see what it looked like straight out of camera. And this kind of, I think, goes towards Roger's comment. He's not with us in the chat tonight. He's not able to watch live, but he was asking about a new technique he just heard about called split raw. Never heard of it. And as he described it, he said he tried it and was not as impressed. It basically allows you to kind of edit a single image and then duplicate that image, edit it a little bit more, bring them both together in Photoshop, and hopefully have better noise levels in the shadows. Because so you see this image here, you know, if I start to bring my exposure up, some areas get brighter faster than I want. The brighter areas get brighter, and I'm really having trouble bringing the detail out of those shadows down there. So I can kind of split the difference. I'm going to bring the shadows up, and you can see that those shadows start to kind of come alive. But they also are, even if I go all the way to 100, they're a lot more blue than I like. And so I'm going to, again, split the difference, and I'm going to get my graduated filter, and then just drag up here on this. I'm going to reset it from whatever it was last. I want the whole valley to be a bit warmer. And I want the shadows to, again, be brighter, so I can bring them up a little bit more. And now I'm going to duplicate this radial gradient. And it's going to duplicate that effort, so you could turn one off or both of them off. You can kind of see the change. But on the second one, this one that I've got going on right now, I'm going to use a range mask. I've talked about this a little bit. I did do a Tuesday tip on it that I'm really proud of. I think it's really clear and in-depth. But this is just really powerful these days. You go to luminance and show luminance mask. And right now, this red area is where this is being affected. If I drag from the right down, it's going to remove this mask from the brighter areas. So this is a value from darkest to lightest in your image. And that's what I want to do. I want this to really just affect those shadows over there. So I can bring it down and say, basically, the darker 20% of my image is now getting affected by this mask. And so you turn that off, and you can see just a little bit of difference. And now I can bring this even further right. And it's not, excuse me, it's not making all of this crazy yellow, but it is really warming up the shadows and making that much warmer, but still, in my mind, pretty natural looking. So I've been using this as I was editing through a lot of these different images. Not only are you able to limit it by the brightness of the image, but you can also select individual colors and work on those as well. Here's another example of these lovely trees we saw on the way into the north rim of the Grand Canyon. If we look at what this looked like before and after, and notice that, again, this is just using a gradient where it really was limiting to the colors that are just here that I want to pop. The pine trees still look nice and realistic and decent, and the bright white trunks are still nice and clean and bright white. They don't have any weird color tints to them. It's really just affecting the colors in this part of the image.
Yeah, that's a great tip, especially on the shadows, but being able to really isolate those colors. The graduate filter has gotten so robust now. It's kind of like, who would have known? But for those that are watching that haven't seen that tutorial that you did a while back, I definitely encourage you to go back and check that out, because these are great tips right here.
And stop in there. Okay. Thank you. Yes. That's it. If you would like to see us, Steve and I, working on your images, giving you some feedback on the image, but mostly focused on kind of showing you some tips and tricks in Lightroom and Photoshop as well that you can do with your image, then you should be part of the Photo Enthusiast Network, and you have a chance each time we have this show to submit an image or two. If you would like a review, either whenever you need one, you can post them in our community group. You can post them on the forum. That's a little bit more formal. Usually the community group, people are like, here's version 1, version 2. Which version do you all like better? And one of the things that a lot of people struggle with, myself sometimes too, is you push these sliders all over the place. And then you're like, did I do it too much? Could I do it more? And it's really nice to have some other quick opinions on that.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the tricks that I may have mentioned on the show before, but in all my real estate photography work, you know, I'd go out and I'd shoot a house in the morning or even come home after a twilight shoot or something. And I'd be all excited to get the client their photos. So I'd start working on those. And sometimes I'd finish the job that evening. It might be midnight or something. And before I ever sent those out, I'd always make sure that I slept on it. So the next day I'd wake up in the morning, I'd take a look at the files again, and 100% of the time I ended up making some tweaks to the edits. And they weren't usually minor. They weren't like major differences, like it just looked so much better the next day. But I would notice things with fresh eyes the next day that I didn't notice the night before. And that's kind of what we like to do here with the discussion board and Facebook sharing and stuff, is have some other people take a look at it with a different set of eyes. And they may be able to advise you on something that you could try or change. It doesn't mean that it's right, but it just may, you know, you may just try to go a different direction with something, or it's that whole iron sharpens iron. There's been feedback that I've given, and then some things were picked up just this last week on the discussion board on some of the changes that I made to one of Adam Doskey's photos. had this green tint to it. And the person that was commenting was absolutely right. I went back and I looked at it again and I'm like, what was I thinking? So we all learned too.
Yep. Yep. Very true. And just it's worth mentioning that monthly, you, Allie, and David, all master photographers, sit down and critique a select number of images that have been submitted, and pick kind of the best image of that group each month. And the person who has the best image receives a print from Bay Photo, and it's been various different things. Excuse me, you know, anywhere from like a $60 to a couple $100 worth of product from Bay Photo. And they've been sponsors for that, which has been awesome. Not only the feedback, but then of course, the ability to then get a nice print of that image or whatever image you want if you're the winner.
Yeah, that's been awesome. Just a point of clarification, David and Allie are master photographers. I am on my way to earning that degree, but I can't call myself a master photographer just yet.
You're a master photographer in my eyes, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. What did I want to? Oh, well, let's before we get into kind of the rest of the tech barf or tech barf, which is where we talk gear a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about this DJI Osmo Pocket. Let's see if I'm crazy. Steve, I don't know. You've been on the road some today. I'm not sure you've had a chance to digest much about this.
I read it. I read a little bit about it. Well, you'll talk about this, but I think you pegging it as a GoPro killer is probably right on the money. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, I'm giving some serious thought to picking one of these little bad boys up. I think it would be a lot of fun to play with, and also a good tool for my real estate photography.
Yes. Yes. I'm gonna roll right now for everybody the product video that DJI Press sent out to all of us. And so here's the thing. And I put up a poll. I'll go look at this poll in a minute on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you should, because I interact with you all there often. But I put up a poll. Would you buy this, or would you buy the new GoPro Hero Black, which has the electronic stabilization? So this is the thing. And one commenter already that I read on my post said, well, you know, for action, I'd still go with a GoPro. I would too, but here's the thing. We see so many people when we go out to these locations, some of the more touristy ones, walking around with a GoPro as their main photo and video camera, because it's easy for selfies, because it's so wide, it's so small, it's compact, and you know, it does an okay job of that. But I have to say that it's not much bigger. It's a little cheaper, and it has some really nice intuitive controls that give you fantastic stabilized video. These little gimbals, DJI has done an amazing job. When we come back after this is over being rolled, I'll show you the big Ronin S on my desk if you haven't noticed it already. But you know, all of that kind of built in the fact that it's a camera that looks to me as good as a GoPro, but then of course has the gimbal built into it, and which gives it these other smarts and things like that. Like we just saw the motion time lapse. We just saw that doing the 3-shot panorama. DJI knows these gimbals. I'm amazed by how stable drone footage is. They're using that technology in here, and all of this comes in cheaper. And with a case, it's waterproof to 60 meters. That's impressive stuff. So this reminds me a lot of the GoPro Karma kind of deal. You remember that, Steve?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I only remember it because we talked about it so much, but I think a lot of people a year from now are going to be like, GoPro had a drone? What?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, GoPro came out on stage and they had this foldable drone called the Karma, and everybody was like, wow, that's pretty cool. It folds down. It's compact. It's smart. It's got a GoPro on a gimbal. You take it out. And a week later, DJI came out with the Mavic, and, you know, which was back there. I could try to get it with my grabby thing, but I don't want to do that. And everybody was like, whoa, that folds down a lot smaller and has better features. And you know what? A couple months later, it wasn't falling out of the sky like the Karma was. So GoPro.
I actually didn't know that was happening. As soon as DJI introduced theirs, it was just like a joke. You know, the Karma was, who in the world would go buy that thing when DJI just stomped them with this thing?
Yeah. Well, literally, it was a few weeks or a month later, the GoPro had a total product recall. They were falling out of the sky because the battery was becoming unlatched and disconnected during flight with the Karmas. So they fixed that, and they're not making any more, but apparently they have enough product that they are still selling them. I see them on B&H every once in a while. But they stopped doing that, and they really seemed like they were hurting. GoPros, people weren't really buying new ones. The GoPro Hero 6 wasn't, you know, it was a little bit better than previous models, but not enough. And then came along the 7 with this electronic stabilization. I haven't tested it yet, but people have been raving about it, that it really is pretty impressive. But electronic stabilization has never been, up to this point, a good match for a full optical stabilization. I mean, here's the big Ronin gimbal that's made for DSLRs. I mean, when you put a DSLR on here, or a mirrorless camera, it is just so amazingly stable that it's fantastic. And of course, this one has some of those smarts built in too. So you could put it on a tripod, you could put it on a desk, and let it do kind of a motion time lapse as well, which is neat. I appreciate products that can do multiple things for you and just kind of make your life easier. You're carrying less tools. So, you know, even as small as the sensor is in that Pocket Osmo, it is the same size as the GoPro, and I see it having more smarts with face tracking and the motion time lapse and the slower shutter speed stuff that's possible handheld because it's on a gimbal. And I see it as being a significantly better product than the GoPro.
Well, and that's what I keep seeing with DJI is the stuff that they come out with is the latest technology that has been tested and now works. And yeah, there's some bugs and stuff once something comes out. But well, I mean, you got the Karma falling out of the sky. So how do you, how do you combat that? But DJI has just been doing such a great job with the stabilization of their cameras on their drone systems. And then with the Osmo, I got a gift card to an Apple store, and I was all set. I was going to use that towards an Osmo gimbal for my iPhone. And literally like in a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden this thing's announced. So I'm probably just going to hold off on that and wait until this little guy comes out. Even though I'm not using my phone, it's just so much more pocketable. Mm-hmm. And I love the idea of having something that's really small and you can take everywhere, and it's stabilized with a gimbal that is tried and true from DJI. They do a great job.
Yeah, they really do. I just checked the poll. It's 54% to 46% seeing they prefer a GoPro over the Osmo. All right, so I could be very well wrong, but I feel like this is going to eat into GoPro pretty significantly because it offers something, or it offers a couple of different things that they don't. And the bulk of the use that I see GoPros out in the world, the DJI Osmo Pocket would be a better buy for them.
Yeah, there is still a bit of an apples to oranges comparison here, two different products, but those lines are starting to become blurred very quickly. And with the size of this thing, I mean, DJI, the thing that's really cool is they're introducing products that a lot of people don't even see coming, unless you're really on top of this stuff. It kind of reminds me of Apple in the earlier days, where all of a sudden they, talk about a great internet communicator, new iPod, and something else, and it's all in one in an iPhone. That, quite frankly, I wasn't. And a telephone. I wasn't expecting. I love that kind of thing when technology companies are just so far ahead that they come out with these things. So I'm not saying this pocketable Osmo, is that what it's called?
Yep.
Yeah. Is the latest technology thing, but man, it's a cool product. And for somebody like me who can go and photograph a home and then do a walkthrough with a gimbal right there on the spot and just stick it in my pocket and go, I think it's great.
Yeah, definitely very nice. I can't remember. I definitely have talked a little bit about the new Mavic 2, or this is the Mavic Zoom. I'm going to be reviewing the full Mavic 2 in a minute. Body-wise, the two are similar with this rear sensor that would allow you to avoid crashing backwards into a tree in Croatia. We'll look at that footage in a few minutes. But I think last time we had the show, I hadn't really truly tested the tracking, the upgraded tracking of this now, where it can make some predictions about where you're going. And because it's got sensors on top as well. The other day I was like, you know what? I need to test this. And so I just walked down this wooded path, and it was up above me, and it came down on its own low, and it, could kind of tell that it was looking around. You can watch on the app what it sees as an obstacle around it. It kind of highlights in red. And I made the mistake as I walked down the path, it wasn't coming. And I was like, oh, all right, but it was waiting to see where I went, because once I started walking again, it's like, oh, he really is walking down this path. I really need to follow him. I really feel much more like it's actually thinking. It's not really, but it does feel much more like a droid. And so then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, I guess I got to follow him. And it just came barreling down this path. There was 2 light poles, a trash can, a bunch of bushes. This was a small, shaded, wooded path, and it just came right through there and didn't crash into anything. A few hours later, I was riding my little electric bike. Actually, it's not mine. It's just one of those little rental ones down along the seashore we got here. And I started it kind of sideways to me. And I biked away from it, and it turned. And as it turned, a tree came into its view and blocked. And again, I thought, it'll just tree filled the frame. There was no sign of me, nothing. It completely lost me. Well, it went around the tree and locked right back onto me and followed me again. So it's really, what are we going to be like in 5 years from now? It's kind of cool.
Scary.
It is a little scary. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Robots looking for Sarah Connor. That's my fear.
We're very close. Skynet. Is DJI the beginning of Skynet?
I don't know.
Maybe
if it is, I bought right into it with the Hasselblad.
That's right. That's right. All right. Let's talk about a news article Roy's pulled out for us. We've got a lot of different ones here, but the one that caught my eye the most, and I'm interested in it, is that. Oh, well, let me say real quick. I wanted to say, why am I interested in the DJI Osmo other than I'm just saying it's better than the GoPro? Well, it's got that additional smarts in it. It has 4K at 60p, which I think is really kind of cool. And the way it integrates with your phone too is just really smart and easy, along with a little screen on the back that's touch screen with that face tracking. So again, we see a lot of people using GoPros for selfie. The fact that it will track your face and keep it centered in the frame if you want is all kind of cool. But
so the big question for me is there a pocketable Osmo with the 1-inch Hasselblad sensor that's coming?
I have to imagine that version 2, that will be a larger sensor, because right now the sensor in there is basically your cell phone, smartphone, and sensor that we have in here, which is decent, but in low light, it certainly is not great. Low light pictures with the zoom, I was hoping they would be better, because this is kind of a follow-up version to the original, but they're not great. Video is usable. Still, pictures at night with this thing, not worth your time.
So as a marketing idea, I'm thinking they could just tack on Pro to the name of it, and all their marketing supplies could just say Go Pro.
I like it, Steve. I like it.
Sorry, folks.
You speak like a corporate.
I'm here all night. Don't forget to tip your waitress.
I'm curious to see. This is an article from SLR Lounge. The 3 biggest reasons portrait and wedding photographers should switch to mirrorless eventually. Now, I had somebody who wrote me the other day. They had been talking to David, and David said, hey, go talk to Toby if you're looking at new gear. And he's got an old Canon, and he's like, I don't know, I could go Nikon D850, I could go Canon 5D Mark IV, or I could go Sony A7 III. And I was like, well, I'm a bit partial to the Sony A7 series myself. And he's like, well, isn't this newless a little bit of mirrorless technology? It's not tried and true yet. And I feel we're well past that tried and true, and the benefits are pretty nice. But let's see what this article says here. I'll share it with you so you can kind of scan it with me and see. I haven't looked at this yet, so this is a surprise for me too. The first reason he's looking at, well, is he talking about specifically Nikon? Let's see. It's important to consider the exact type of photography you do and the style with which you shoot it with when discussing camera gear. I do agree that that's very important. And for this reason, we're focusing this entire article on portrait and wedding photography, which is good because we don't really have an extreme frames per second cameras yet in mirrorless except the Sony A9. So number one reason is focus point spread. So here we have examples of Nikon DSLR autofocus point arrays. The white box represents the entire frame, and we can see that they are pretty clustered in the center. And then what I believe we're looking at here, and that depends a lot on the model you're working, but these points are probably the cross-type focus points, which use both vertical and horizontal lines in the frame to determine whether or not they're in focus. They're more accurate and they're usually faster. So if you confine your camera to one of these, you usually have a little bit better success, but notice you have far fewer points to work with. And then of course you've got your center grid and your single point as well. But I don't know what the point is of showing these last two, but really look at all of the space where you can't focus in a DSLR. And Steve, with your Hasselblad, it's a mirrorless. How much control do you have over where that focus point roams around?
Oh, tons. I can just slightly hold a button down. See that grid that you're pulling up right there on the Z6?
Yep.
That same grid pops up on the screen of the Hasselblad, and I can just tap wherever I want the focus to be. Or I can just use my thumb on the back of the screen as I'm looking through the viewfinder and just move around there wherever I want it to be.
Nice. Yep.
It's probably, I would say, like 98% coverage area, maybe 96%. I don't know. It's ridiculous compared to my DSLR.
Yep. Yeah, it really, so it's basically edge to edge across all of these different mirrorless cameras. And again, because the whole sensor is capable of doing that autofocusing as opposed to just the focusing brain part of a DSLR, there's much less focus and recomposing work that has to happen, which also can bring with it some issues. All right. Number two reason is electronic viewfinder. What you see is what you get. So for those who don't know, when you look through your DSLR, your view is hitting a mirror and bouncing out through the lens, and it's optical. It is an exact image of the world that you're looking at. But that doesn't always translate to exactly what you're going to capture based on your shutter speed or even your white balance. You know, none of that stuff can be conveyed to you through that actual input. Whereas a mirrorless camera, what you see through it, it's a screen. It's being processed by your white balance, by your shutter speed, by your aperture. All of those show you in real time exactly what you're going to get. Steve, again, you know, as somebody who's pretty recently made the transition from shooting typically DSLRs to now a mirrorless camera, how have you found the viewfinder?
So I'm a huge believer in electronic viewfinders now, and so much so that I don't even remember why I kind of held out on it. Like I had to see through the lens. Why that was such a big deal to me, I don't even remember at this point, because I've gotten so used to using one now with the new camera. The only thing that I don't like about the Hasselblad that a lot of mirrorless cameras have, I think yours does with the Sony A7R III, is the ability to put the histogram right on the screen as you're shooting and looking through the viewfinder. I can do it in live view with the Canon, so long as the mirror's locked up, but I can't through the viewfinder. Obviously, it's a DSLR. But I use my histogram constantly. So having said that, though, I can, you know, pull up to a scene and look through the viewfinder of the Hasselblad and make changes to my shutter speed or ISO, whatever I need to do, and see exactly the way that picture is going to turn out. I love it. I would think if I was a wedding photographer, electronic viewfinder alone is worth switching over to mirrorless.
Yeah, yeah, it makes some. It really makes a big difference. And these days, there's very few arguments in my mind that are genuine against an EVF, unless you kind of a holdout, or maybe some wildlife photographers. Not all mirrorless cameras. You know, you got some of them you have a little bit of a delay in there. Some of them you have a blackout. But So there are some reasons why, but being able to have all of that information in there and seeing exactly what you get is nice. Now, number 3 is in-body stabilization for low light portraits and candids. Now, interestingly, this does leave out the Canon EOS R, because the Canon EOS R does not offer in-body image stabilization. This would be limited to just the Nikon Z series or the Sony A7 series that has the in-body image stabilization. And it's nice because you can have a small prime. One of my favorite lenses for the Sony system is the 85 f1.8. It's a reasonably sized, lightweight lens. And the fact that I can be stabilized with that lens because the body is stabilized is really helpful and handy as well. So I was curious to see what they said are the reasons why they think. And those are pretty solid reasons to me. But again, I think probably the EVF is the strongest one in here. Maybe the autofocus. Those two are both really big points. It depends so much on what you're shooting. For weddings, stabilization, you always have to be careful because you don't want your subjects, if they're moving around, if they're candids and things like that, sort of they're on the dance floor, stabilization doesn't really help you so much in that situation. But there are situations where you have very still models. You can kind of cheat those shutter speed rules and get a little bit lower.
Yeah.
All right. And I wanted to, let's see, we're moving into the section of the show we just called Neat Stuff. I'm not sure when we officially called it that. But we have a couple of different things that are listed in here that I want to share with you all. And actually, maybe just one, depending on time. And that was a Facebook post from B&H. Oh, did I copy the wrong thing? I have to go see. That was what tips and tricks you have for beginning photographers. Maybe I've lost it, and we'll have to come back to it.
It was a B&H email, you said?
I found it. Yes. Nope. No, sorry. It was a B&H Facebook post.
Oh, Facebook.
Yep. And it's actually Tim Rosenthal, who has been a longtime Patreon supporter, who kind of caught my eye because he had commented, so it bubbled up in my Facebook feed. And it's simply a question from B&H of what's the best creative advice you've ever received. And Tim's answer was the first one I saw because, again, he's a friend of mine on Facebook, so it was presented to me. And it is fantastic, simple, and easy bit of advice that I think is really important for people to take in mind. And that is, if you see a shot, take it. It won't be there tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah. And I take it a step further. I mean, don't even tomorrow. It might not be there in 5 minutes. Don't ever like say, oh, I'll go further down this trail and then I'll come back and see. If you see something now that's catching your eye, stop and make an effort to take a picture of it. If you're driving down the road and you see a beautiful scene unfolding, don't be like, well, I'll wait till I get home, or I'll, drop the kids off and, come back. No, stop. Do it now.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. That's one of the biggest things that I think we as photographers have the ability to do, is just capture that moment that will be gone. I talk about this when we're up, photographing icebergs and stuff. That will never, ever happen again. Mm-hmm. That it's changing literally right before your eyes. But sunsets and things like that. My wife and I, all the time, we're traveling home after a day of work or something, and we look out and just see the most beautiful sunset. And we're like, dang it, why is the camera at home? This is ridiculous. It should be on me 24/7. Yeah. I mean, we've got our phones, so it's still worth stopping and taking a picture. But if you got your equipment with you, you see something, stop and take the shot. It's great advice.
Yeah. There's some great ones in here. Where was it?
Wait a second. Sorry. Yeah. I want to retract that statement just slightly, because there are times, and we talk about this on our tours too, when you don't want to go on a trip or experience and all you remember is looking through the viewfinder. And I've shared this story with some of our clients before. The first time I went to Tanzania, it was such an amazing experience to me. But I got to be honest, I got home and most of my memories were gazing through that viewfinder while, trying to hold stable on the Land Rover and shoot wildlife. The second time I went back, I really made an effort to just kind of take a lot of it in, look up from the camera from time to time, and really just watch these animals live. I still captured tons of shots, much more than I needed to. But so there is a bit of a caveat to what I said earlier. If you see the shot, take it for sure. But we're all humans. We know that there should be a balance there too. Don't let life just simply be you looking through a viewfinder either.
Yeah, great point. Very, very well said. I like this one though. Study accounting because a creative accounting will make you rich. That's kind of funny. It's a little off task, but it's good. This one, take a picture of what you're taking a picture of. Doesn't that seem very meta? But no, not all that extraneous stuff in front, around, and behind it. Yes, I think it's a great way to say that, because we talk about this, or I talk about this a lot on trips. I think we all do, is when we're out in these interesting places, something catches our eye and we bring the camera up to it and we're focused on what caught our eye. But what we don't know is when we make that two-dimensional image, there's all of this other stuff that our viewers might be distracted by.
Yeah.
And so they're not in this scene. They don't have the sights and the smells and the sounds to all kind of focus them in on this one amazing thing that caught your eye. So it's your job to kind of get rid of all that extraneous stuff, as this guy says.
Yeah, that's good advice. And especially with portraits, you know, so many times we see people that are like, oh, maybe I need to get over here and have tunnel view behind me and all of tunnel view showing. And you're like, no, the subject is you. This is a headshot. All I need is a section of like 3 feet by 3 feet behind your head, and we're good.
Yeah. Yeah. Another guy, very similar kind of suggestion to that one I just read, but it says, be ruthless regarding what gets into an image. Again, so it's that idea of simplification. Keep it simple, stupid. So this is on B&H's Facebook page. It's just a couple of posts down. It was posted about 6 hours ago. It's called Wednesday Wisdom. Well worth reading through. They have quite a few comments on there, and actually just 30 as of right now. And I think there's some good advice in there, so you should take some time. Roy points out that maybe you don't want to shoot in the bathroom though, because people will think you're weird. I'm
afraid to ask if that comes from experience.
I am too. I feel like we've been in a lot of really interesting bathrooms around the world, from like the dirt terminal at Tanzania in the Serengeti to some gleaming bathroom in Iceland. And I do think from time to time I should start an Instagram, or at least start something that kind of captures the variety of bathrooms I see around the world. But worrying about being weird has kept me from doing it.
I will say that Europe, at least the little bit of Europe that I've seen, tends to have the best bathrooms. Amsterdam airport, you go in there, it's like you got your own palace all to yourself.
Yeah.
I've never taken a picture of it though. Even though I do have that whole place to myself, it just feels really weird. That's not a place for pictures.
Yeah.
Call me strange, but
yeah. You know what time I think it is, Steve?
I have a quick question before you jump into Major Tom, if that's what you were leading to.
Oh, I wasn't going to do Major Tom just yet, but go ahead with your question.
Oh, well, now I'm super curious. I was just glancing at the neat stuff category here, and one of the first bullet points was, what would you do if you were unable to work? And it's an article that I saw come through our notes, and I haven't had a chance to read it. Just curious if you had checked that out.
I hadn't. It caught my eye too, but I was a little bit worried about time. Okay. So I just remind people that we are going from notes that Roy put together. Thank you, Roy. They're all at photorec.tv/MMH. And I think just super skimming it really quickly is what would happen if you could no longer work? I think this is mostly targeted at photographers. We're freelance people. What kind of safety net or kind of who's got our back is what this article is about. And so there's some important information in here. If you fall into that category, I think it would take some time to read that. It would be good.
Okay. I was curious about that. And the other was the 5 reasons why your photos suck, which I didn't read. I don't, we don't need to discuss it, but I will give PhotoRec TV a plug and say that it was about a year and a half ago, you did a great video on why your photos suck, and it was clickbait. You're not that mean, but it was a cool video. I saw that headline, and it made me it reminded me of that video that you did, because I thought it was really good. And we talk about that when we go through our editing classes on tours. And we basically, you know, the gist is, if you want people to think you're a better photographer than you are, just share less.
Yep.
I'll say that for some people. Some of you just need to get out there and start sharing your stuff.
Yeah. That video was almost 2 years ago now. Nick Sharples helped me film that when he came up for a visit.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. But what I was teasing was, I think it's time to share the never before seen footage of the wreck. Now let's set up a little bit of a backstory. All right. I know you're all on the edge of your chairs. You're like, this is going to be exciting stuff. All right, hold on. It's not that exciting. But we're in Croatia. Croatia has very relaxed drone laws. I had the DJI Mavic Pro with me, and it was it wasn't it was the first time I think I'd really taken that drone on a trip with me. And I was flying it every chance I could get, flying it over water sometimes, which still makes me basically poop my pants every time.
Well, I must say that this was not your drone. You hadn't purchased yours yet. This was still being...
They never found out.
But despite it has a good ending, and you did end up buying it.
Yep.
So, not that.
Not that one. Who would want that one?
Who would want that piece of junk?
All right. So, so we were in Croatia. We were in this little harbor. We were walking back from, maybe this is why, maybe we were walking back from a wine tasting. And the light was just amazing. So I'll go ahead and start sharing this video now. And I said, you know, I got to get this video. I got to put the drone up. And so you can see it starts off kind of rough. I'm not sure how smoothly this plays for you all, but let's skip forward a little bit. I fly through over to the town. You can see that light over there, which was catching my eye. I loved that.
That's a cool place.
And then you turn and it just really kind of lights up. So I'm setting up for this shot, trying to decide exactly what to do. I had my eyes on the drone, I thought. And so I then just start to let it play, and I'm flying backwards away from the town, kind of letting it open up. Beautiful, beautiful old town. I mean, some of these buildings are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And this is all going so well. But unbeknownst to me, I wasn't flying the drone backwards towards me. I was flying it backwards directly towards the hillside over there. Now, I'm going to pause it for a second, because this looks bad, right? I mean, full on into the tree, pine cones right there. But watch what this little powerful sucker does.
Can you play it with sound?
There is no sound. The drone doesn't capture any audio on its side. What would be nice would be if there was sound from my controller, because we'd have to just be like beep 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 beep. Actually, I think there was a lot of clients around, and so we
showed this footage to a few people, and we were making our own sound effects.
So, but watch here. What happens? It comes out of the tree and it's flying okay. It's okay. But I don't know what. I was still flying it into the tree. So there it is on the ground. And now the good news is it reports its location. The bad news is it was literally like we were on the other side of the harbor. So we had to run all the way up to the front of the harbor, around, across from us, and up. How many stairs was that, Steve?
Oh, gosh. That was, it was such a hoof to get up there. Well, and then we get there, and there's this local dude who was super nice. He was with his dog just hanging around. He probably smoked about 15 cigarettes in the time that he was helping us. He's just cruising around, you know, making the walk like it's nothing. And here we are, you know, I think we're kind of fit. And I'm just huffing and puffing. I would say hundreds of stairs to get up there, but it was just straight up.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. The good news, as you alluded to, is one, we had this guy help us get to it, and two, uh, it was okay. I literally flew it again the next morning, and there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible, especially because we had seen the footage. But you know, I gotta say, that app that you had, I was pretty blown away because when we started looking for this thing, I didn't know that you had a locator on the app. It makes perfect sense, but I just had never thought about that. And it was pretty darn accurate. But I mean, it was pine needles, and it was up on this hillside in somebody's backyard, and there was just brush and stuff all over the place. And we find this thing, and I couldn't believe it was okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wasn't quite sure how that whole kind of find your drone thing worked either. I was glad that it worked as well as it did. And I also feel really lucky that one, it wasn't stuck at the top of the tree or on a roof of somebody's house, or, I'm really glad, all seriousness, that there wasn't some little kid playing down underneath the tree. And so just really it was a good lesson to learn in that case because there was no real negative outcome of it. And now I am much more careful. I always know where the drone is. I have my eyes on it. I'm much more able to use the map now. And it's just like anything where, you start off taking photos and I don't know, for many years, I felt like I wasn't very good at it. And you keep practicing. Same thing with a drone. I'm not talking about just the little flying up around and things like that, but getting the cinematic shots, getting the nice shots, and doing it without, endangering anybody and feeling like you're doing a decent job. So I'm just happy to kind of be getting there finally.
And look at you now. You can actually fly drones off the back of an Arctic ship with tons of GPS and radio frequency interference.
I'm still pooping my pants while I do it, though.
Yeah, that was impressive. You held your composure well. I know you well enough that I could tell how nervous you were flying that thing, but I don't think many other people knew. And the footage you got was great.
Was it my hand shaking like this that was the giveaway?
It was kind of like your little grabber thing there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's move into the part of the show you just teased, and that is photos from space. A weekly look at a photo of or from or around or about space. And Roy's collected 2 links for us. We're going to look at the one that made me, one is really cool, but you got to go look at that, photorec.tv/MMH. And that is the recording of a rocket launch from the space station. The rocket didn't come from the space station. The rocket came from Earth, but the recording happened on the space station. But I want to highlight, we've got a new drone. It's a little bit fancier and a little bit more expensive than the one I have on the table that has landed on Mars. I guess you could call it a drone. It's not going anywhere. This one's not roving around on the surface. It's plunked itself down, and it's going to be mostly looking at the crust itself, and it's got some little device on it that's going to dig down into the crust as well to see what it's like down below. Because it's kind of crazy, getting a little sciencey here, but it's kind of crazy for as much stuff as we've put on the surface of Mars. Literally nothing has gone deeper than this on the surface. It's neat.
Well, and this new one is, hey, I mean, it's time to start spreading this to other planets. This new one is an influencer. It takes selfies, and it's got an Instagram account. It talks about itself on the Instagram account. So, quite interesting. Yeah, there it is. The first shot ever, right, from this new rover.
Yep. And which not very exciting, but what is kind of neat is it took this, just moments after it landed. So to now have that kind of immediacy that this current generation loves and really likes, it looks terrible because it still has its clear lens cap on it. Why don't we all have clear lens cap? I guess because we'd shoot through them and forget to take them off. That would be not good.
Probably.
So this thing was smart enough to take it off. And here is a better shot, which shows some of the what actually lander itself and Mars in the distance. So just insight. Thank you.
This
pretty cool.
I love the way they're doing this too with the posts. How it's being spoken about in the first person. I just think it's kind of cute. That graphic or animation is awesome. The way those solar panels come out. I don't know if you got, there it is.
Oh yeah, right here.
the GIF.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah. This kind of thing just blows me away. I'm so into it. I wish I could just kind of sit around and follow this stuff more. But when these stories pop up, I just think they're absolutely fascinating. It's totally cool. I actually have a high school buddy that I graduated with. He worked for United in their repair department at San Francisco International Airport for years. And then he got a job with NASA. And what was the first rover that we landed on on Mars?
Opportunity?
Is that what it was called? Whatever it was, he was part of the team that helped build that thing. And man, it's so cool to go to a class reunion and pick his brain.
Yeah, I bet. The other thing that I liked about this was just how psyched these people were. This room full of people were. It was just really neat to watch them. They poured a lot of time and energy into this over the last couple of years, and for this whole landing to go so well. I watched this live for a few minutes on Monday, I think it was, and it was just kind of fun.
Can you imagine how tense that must be right before that moment?
Yep. So there's so many things that can go wrong. You know, it flies for so far distance, communication, all of the little bits and bots. Nothing can get stuck. You know, there's so many ways you could get a dud, and it all just worked out so nicely.
Yeah. Well, the fact that it's all on a sound stage somewhere, I mean, that helps ease the tension.
That's right. Yeah. And I wonder if Mars is as flat as Earth is, you know, flat Mars, flat Earth.
Yeah.
Just real quick, Sue is in chat. She was also there and witnessed, the reaction as we realized the drone was crashing too. So thank you for still being with us, Sue, and not being scared away by some guy who runs his drone into the pine trees. All right. Hey, Steve, I think we're at the end of the show. If I lean back, I'm out of focus. So I'm going to come back.
Hey, so exciting stuff. I don't know where we are on the week here, but on the 4th, I fly to your place.
That's right.
I forget what day of the week that is next week. Is that like Tuesday or something?
I think it's Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the following day, we're flying up to Alaska. So I guess we're not broadcasting next week.
Yeah.
We'll be up in Fairbanks, Alaska on our Northern Lights tour. But I'm excited because we've got, hopefully, we've slated time for this, but I don't know, is some more drinks and critiques.
Mm-hmm.
Always a fun time. I'm looking forward to seeing the new place and that groovy wall in your new studio.
Cool. Yep. Kate asked if I painted it way back when. I don't know if somebody had answered you, Kate, or not. This is actually just a vinyl type backdrop that's hanging back behind me. I'm pretty happy with it, actually. I mean, despite the fact that it looks like a graffitied brick wall, it seems to be working fairly well for me. I picked up a different one that is more of a wooden background, but it's very light colored, like weathered white wood, and it just doesn't look very good back there.
We'll get some black spray paint, and we'll do a time-lapse video and just have some fun graffitiing that one. And we can put them both up and see what people think. Fake graffiti or Toby and Steve graffiti?
Yeah, my graffiti skills. What's that?
Let's have Fiona and Henry graffiti it.
I don't know. You're asking Fiona would only do wonderful, sweet things because she's the sweetest daughter on earth. Henry, I really, as a 12-year-old boy who acts like he's going on 16, I would be quite worried about what he'd graffiti. That's true. They're both actually quite good artists. They have drawing skills that I don't possess, and I love seeing what they create. So we'll see. Yeah. Sounds good. And drinks and critiques are on the docket, and we'll also try to find some time to do something for you all, but no Wednesday show next week. That's correct.
Oh, maybe we could do, well, last time we did drinks and critiques, we did photo mishmash together with cocktails. Then we went right into recording drinks and critiques. So maybe we can play around with that format again, because that was kind of a lot of fun. So
yeah, it was,
folks.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, Steve, thank you so much for spending your Wednesday afternoon with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. love it.
Thank you to the chat room. Thank you for hanging out and sharing your thoughts and opinions and teasing us about different things. And Roy, thank you for putting together the show notes. If you're going to go build a website, do it at squarespace.com/photorectv. And if you're watching this and you're not a photo enthusiast member, prices are going up January 1st. So take advantage. You buy the annual, it's $8 a month. $8 a month for access to professional photography.
As long as you keep your account in good standing, that will never go up. We talked about this. So get in now and lock in that that rate.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, quite good deal. And we've got lots of wonderful things planned for you all in the new year with lots of fantastic content. So until we talk again next time, bye-bye.
See ya.
I'll see you all later.